So today we're going to talk about a topic that is very popular, which is nighttime binging. And I'm going to give you 5 common mistakes that people make when it comes to binge eating at night and tell you what those are and what to do differently. If you are listening live on Voice America, you can call the show. If you have any questions, call the show. Talk to me. 866-472-5792 is the direct line. If you are on the live stream on Instagram, you can just drop a question or a comment and away we go. Okay, so here is the first thing that you need to know about binging at night, because a lot of people do eat at night. They find themselves in front of the fridge, wandering into the kitchen, and even though they say, I will not do it, I will not go into the kitchen at night, they find themselves back in the kitchen every night. Maybe they decide to have just a few bites of ice cream and then you polish off the whole pint and then you're just getting started, or just a few of whatever and then you have the whole thing. So nighttime eating can be a real problem. It not only can lead to weight gain, of course, but it disrupts your sleep. It leaves you feeling grouchy, and worse, it makes you feel terrible about yourself. Now, by the way, overeating is different from binge eating, and I want to make that distinction first. Overeating just means eating to excess. That's something we all do at one time or another. So when we overeat, we basically shrug it off. We say, oh, had a little bit too much. Oh, well, no big deal. And maybe we eat a little less at the next meal or the next day or whatever. So overeating is not a big deal. It doesn't affect the way we feel about ourselves. But binging is different. Binging means eating large quantities of food at one time, feeling very compulsive, often without enjoyment, like you don't want to do it, but you just can't stop. And it's about being out of control with food. It involves shame. Shame, unlike guilt. Guilt is, oh, I wish I hadn't have done that. Shame is there's something wrong with me because I did it. And it involves remorse and self-recrimination, and it negatively impacts our self-esteem, makes us feel bad about ourselves. So how can you stop nighttime binge eating? Well, let's look at the common mistakes that are made about this. People have the best intentions, but the road to hell is paved, right, with good intentions. So forget good intentions. I'm going to give you some strategies. So the first mistake that people make when it comes to binge eating at night is thinking that if you eat more during the day, you won't binge at night. And the idea behind this is, hey, if you eat enough to satisfy yourself during the day, you won't get as hungry at night. And then if you're not so hungry, if you're not ravenous, you won't find yourself heading to the kitchen or, grazing on whatever it is that's in there, or DoorDash or drive-through or what have you. In other words, the idea is if you're not hungry, you won't binge. Here's the truth. Binge eating disorder is not about physical hunger. Emotional eating, binge eating is a form of emotional eating. It has to do with your hungry heart, not your stomach. So while it's true that if you don't eat enough during the day, yes, you may get hungrier at night, that doesn't correspond to binge eating. When we eat to resolve and manage our physical hunger, we stop when we're full. We're hungry, we eat something, we're done. But when you are using food to resolve something, to change the way you emotionally feel, it doesn't matter whether you're hungry or not. You're trying to change the way you emotionally feel. That's why it's called emotional eating. And so you could be stuffed and continue binging. It doesn't have to do with physical hunger. You want to really look at, well, what is it that is motivating? I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll get to this later, but you got to look at what's motivating this binge. What problem is it solving? Which is not the way most people think of it. They think of binging is the problem. No, it is the solution to the problem. The problem is some emotion, conflict, thought, situation that you don't want to think about. You want to don't want to deal with, you may not even be aware of. So let me give you an example. I really like giving examples of people. All of these people, their names have been changed. This is not their real name, and some of their descriptions have been changed. But these are all people that I have helped. So first, we're going to talk about Sally. We'll call her Sally. And she had been struggling with binge eating for years, decades actually. She thought if she ate that larger lunch and afternoon snack, she wouldn't feel that urge to binge on cookies at night. But even on days when she ate the snack and ate the lunch and all the things and had a good dinner, she still found herself mindlessly reaching for cookies when she watched TV. And she would start by saying, well, I'm just going to have a couple. I can have a couple. And then that couple would turn into many, and then the whole box would be gone, and then she'd feel so terrible about herself and have that idea of, oh, I ruined the day, ruined it. I might as well have everything else I'm not allowing myself to have, and then it would turn into a binge. So we talked about not cookies and not to do anything to do with, well, when you want to eat cookies, do this instead, because that doesn't work. Instead, we talked about her childhood, because our present difficulties have to do with our childhood. The past is not past. It is haunting our present. And until we realize what that is and deal with it, we will continue to be haunted by the past. It's not about talking about the past, by the way. That doesn't do much good. It's about talking about it as it pertains to our present. So, example. Sally talked about her childhood where she felt neglected by her very busy, successful parents, and she would eat cookies for comfort. And she realized that her nighttime eating had very little to do with physical hunger and more to do with feeling lonely, feeling emotionally neglected or abandoned or unsafe or something with other people. Because she was a latchkey kid, she would go home, no one was there. She'd watch TV and eat, and that made her feel safe and comforted. So when she got home from work and she put on TV, she would want to eat because that made her feel safe and comforted. So by working on her ability to comfort herself, to deal with the loneliness, to go connect with other people, to meet other people, to have fulfilling, satisfying relationships. Notice we use the same word for relationships that we do for food. We talk about a satisfying meal. And we talk about satisfying relationships. We talk about being hungry for love, starving for affection. Yeah. Food and connection are very much bound together. So when Sally was able to process what had happened, deal with the loneliness and emptiness of the past, and find new ways of relating to herself in the present, she stopped binge eating at night. So that is why it is so important to really understand the why behind eating and not just focus on what you're eating. If we had been like, well, Sally, the next time you want to eat cookies, go brush your teeth, write in your journal. If she was not aware of why she was being triggered, writing in her journal really wouldn't have helped. She needed to know why she was being triggered by the cookies. Or take the dog for a walk. No, these things do not work. If brushing your teeth stopped you from binge eating, people would have the cleanest, most amazingly bright smiles ever, and they wouldn't want to binge eat it. It doesn't work that way. You've got to look at why you are doing it so that you can process that and break free. All right, so that's mistake number one, thinking if you eat more during the day, you will not binge at night. Not so true. All right, mistake number two is the idea that if you just practice mindful eating, you won't binge. Now, mindful eating means sitting down to eat and really paying attention to what you're doing, paying attention to every bite. So mindfulness is noticing the taste, the texture, the smell, the whole experience of the food that you're eating. And the idea behind this mistaken belief is that by eating slowly and appreciating food more, you won't overdo it, you won't overeat, you won't binge. Yeah. Nope. I wish I had a buzzer sound. I'd be like, nah, buzzer sound, no. Here's the truth. Mindful eating doesn't work because binging is about going mindless. Going mindless. The purpose of binging is to escape our minds. And so many people, my clients, patients, they describe a feeling of being disconnected and dissociated from themselves when they binge. I've heard them call it the dead zone, the numb zone, the binge zone, whatever it is that you want to call it. It's about not being in your mind, not being even in your body. So since the unconscious goal of binging is to escape from psychological pain, focusing on mindful eating is not going to be effective. Mindful eating is a great practice when it comes to normal eating, when you have a healthy relationship with food, but it is ineffective as a strategy to stop binge eating because it puts the focus on how you're eating or what you're eating instead of why. It's not what you're eating that is the problem. It is what's eating at you. It's why. Understanding that is everything. So here's an example. Someone I'm going to call Mark. So Mark, he really tried to embrace mindful eating. He really gave it his best shot. He was so motivated. And he would sit down and he would try to focus on the taste, the smell, the texture of foods. He hoped that mindful eating mindfully would really help him stop binging at night. And despite his efforts, he would go through tubs of ice cream and he used food to escape from his anxious thoughts, right? So food takes you out of your mind, not out of your mind like crazy, but it takes you out of your consciousness. It takes you out of your thoughts, out of your feelings. It silences the critical voice for a little while. It does all those things. That's why mindful eating doesn't work. So Mark discovered that this anxiety that he had that was really more available to him at night, it stemmed from his perfectionistic tendencies. And if it wasn't perfect, it was terrible. He was either perfect or it was terrible. I call it's either sugar or it's shit. So he during the day, he was busy, he was working, he was occupied, his mind was like not thinking about food. But at night, he started thinking, oh my God, what did I say to my coworker? Oh, I could have said that better. Or, oh, that report I turned in, I could have done that better. He was just constantly telling himself all the things that he could have done better during the day. Like, what is it called? Sunday night, Monday morning quarterbacking. You could tell what like a football person I am not. But anyway, it was after the fact, it would just be just one thing after another. What did I say? What did I say? What did I say? What did I do? How could I have been better? Just beating himself up constantly. So what took him away? What comforted him? Ice cream. Ice cream was the solution to the problem, not the problem. The problem was all of this perfectionistic attitude that made him just second guess every word he said, every interaction he had, every report he made, just going over and over and over and beating himself up and making himself anxious. And then ice cream went, soothed him. So what did he have to do? Right? It wasn't about, well, if you want to eat ice cream, brush your teeth, take a walk, write in your journal. No, those things don't ultimately work. What works is challenging those, for him and anyone who can relate to this, challenging those perfectionistic tendencies, those perfectionistic beliefs, practicing self-compassion instead of asking himself, oh my God, why did I use that word? Or why did I say that? Or why didn't I say that? Or, and mind reading people. Because of course, when he was thinking about all the things he could have said differently and doing the coulda, shoulda, woulda, he was also berating himself and telling him what he, Oh, you should have done this and you should have said it this way and all of that. Just a mean, critical voice that he then shut down, shut off via ice cream. So he had to learn self-compassion and reassuring himself and challenging these thoughts, challenging these beliefs, and developing better ways of challenging both perfectionism and stress. And the more that he did that, the less he ate ice cream at night or any time. And that's how he broke the cycle of nighttime binging. As you can see, uh, so many of the things people do to avoid nighttime binging actually either are ineffective or can make things worse. All right, so the first mistake was thinking if you eat more during the day, you won't binge at night. Nope, because it's not what you're eating that's the problem. It's what's eating at you. And second mistake is practice mindful eating so you won't binge. The third is trying to distract yourself with other things at night. So the idea is if you are feeling that urge to binge, if you can feel yourself being drawn to the kitchen, like the strongest magnet in the world is pulling you into the kitchen, that if you could just distract yourself with some other activity that's healthy and less destructive, you won't go into the kitchen. So call a friend, read a book, watch a movie. And there's the ever-present brush your teeth. I have heard from more than one person who came to see me that they had been told once in an eating disorder program to brush their teeth. Yeah, I have no words. Well, I have a lot of words, but I'll spare them for now, and I'll just give you what really does work. So the idea is if you occupy your mind with other things, that will prevent you from turning to food at night. Well, here's the truth. You can't distract yourself from what you feel, or you can, but not for long. You can't ignore feelings, thoughts. You can't positive think them away. You can't gratitude them away, like, oh, I should just be grateful for what I have so I don't feel those feelings. And you certainly cannot stuff them down. One of my clients once said, if brushing my teeth worked as well as binging, I'd have the whitest teeth in America. Exactly. So chances are you've already tried distracting yourself. You've already tried distracting yourself from painful or upsetting emotions by doing something else. And chances are it didn't work in the long run because we can't distract ourselves forever from what goes on inside. Ultimately, the only way to get rid of feelings is to feel them. And that does not mean magically sitting in your feelings until they go away, by the way, which is another misconception. I just have to sit in my feelings until they go away. Yet you can't sit away your feelings either, any more than you can stuff them down, ignore them, push them away, positive think them away, all the things. Doesn't work. The only way to get rid of feelings is to feel them. That means expressing, that means identifying them, expressing them in some way with words. And that's where journaling can come in, or talking to a trusted friend, to a therapist, someone who could really hear you and not try to talk you out of how you feel, but really listen to you and process those feelings. And then responding to yourself with validation and comfort. Often when people struggling with food need the most comfort from themselves, they end up turning to food, attacking themselves and turning to food to get away from their own mean voice, to get comfort, to get support. Now, if you're supportive of yourself, if you're comforting yourself, if you're soothing yourself, guess what? You don't need food for that purpose. So an example. This is Lisa, not her real name. It's what I'm calling her. So she tried to distract herself from that urge to binge, once it starts building up, it's just all you can think of. It just takes over. It's just in your mind. It's all that's there. But she tried to distract from that by taking a bath, reading a book, calling a friend. And sometimes these things worked for a little bit, but she would inevitably end up binging later. So she'd read a book, she'd take the bath. Sometimes she'd read a book in the bath. She'd call a friend, whatever. And then she was done, and then she was still with the yuck. And so what did she do? Went to the kitchen. And so we looked at her history because, like I said before, our problems in the present have their roots in the past. Sometimes it's childhood, sometimes it's later, but we learn this way of responding to ourselves with food. We learn it. No one is born with this. It is not a brain-based situation. It is something that is learned. And for Lisa, her childhood was pretty okay, but in her first marriage, her husband, I guess, wanted a Barbie doll or something for a wife because he would body shame her as well as emotionally abuse her, but he body shamed her hard. And she was still traumatized by this, and she had kind of internalized some of his views of her, and she would look at herself almost through his eyes. So even though he was an ex-husband, he was out of the picture. He was in her head. He was still in her head. And she would look at herself in the mirror through his eyes, unbeknownst to her. She wasn't consciously thinking like, oh, I have identified with my ex-husband who body shamed me and made me feel bad about myself. And now I internalized those beliefs, and I'm looking at myself as he looked at me. No, she didn't think that consciously. Consciously, all she thought of was, oh, who's going to go out with me? Who's going to date with me until I fix that? Which is, kind of how he talked to her. What are you going to do about that? Ugh. So by processing that traumatic relationship, which had left its roots, left its mark on her, and developing a more positive body image, developing a kinder relationship with herself. By the way, she was in the helping profession. So the way she was to other people was lovely. She was so kind. She was so caring, so helpful. But the way she was with herself was cruel. It was mean. It was actually abusive because, again, she was talking to herself through the voice of her ex-husband, body shaming herself as he had body shamed her. And by learning to validate her emotions, processing the past, she was able to do kind of a psychological exorcism, get him out of her head so she could look at herself as she looked at other people. And when that happened, she could address the underlying issues that were driving that nighttime binging, such as she had thoughts of, I'm never going to meet anyone. I'm going to be alone forever. I'm never going to have kids. She did a lot of future forecasting in the worst possible way. And so she would have real-time pain in the present. She would feel deprived in the present based on a future that she was predicting, but that actually didn't end up happening because guess what? She did meet someone and she did get married and she did have kids. Huh. Right? But if you are thinking, I'm never going to have that, now you're feeling empty and lonely, and the specter of being alone for the rest of your life just takes over, and that's how you feel in the present, and then their food can fill the void, comfort you, distract you, fill the emptiness. So that is why processing why you are turning to food is everything. Again, I can't say it enough. It is not what you are eating that is the problem. It is what is eating at you. Gotta look at why. Okay, the next mistake people make is this, thinking that sleeping more will make you binge less. Now, it is true that a lack of sleep can lead to increased hunger, and it is important for many health reasons to get enough sleep. Yes, 7 or 8 hours a night is ideal. I don't know. Do you know anyone who actually gets that? If so, please tell me the secret. I guess you can't really have kids and sleep through the night. First, because they don't sleep, and later because they're driving their car and you can't sleep until they come home. Yes, that's just a little bit of an insight into my life these days. My 16-year-old daughter has a car. Ay, it is very nerve-wracking. All right. So, getting enough sleep will not stop you from binging because sleep has to do with physicality and not psychology. Here's the truth. Some people eat chocolate or something sugary to stay awake or give them more energy later in the day. It's not a good strategy since when we're tired, we need rest, not sugar. But eating or overeating or binging on sugary foods is different from just eating for the wrong reasons. Eating chocolate to wake up is not a good strategy. You need rest, not sugar. But binge eating chocolate is very different. Binging is a way of resolving something internally or escaping from it or something along those lines. So since binging serves as a way of avoiding emotional conflict, your level of exhaustion has very little impact on whether or not you will binge. You can have you be very well rested, and at night you will binge, and you could have no sleep at night and not binge or binge. So binging really doesn't have to do with your physical state. I think I am almost at my break time. Well, you know what? Let me just talk 30 seconds. Yeah, okay. I think I'm going to take that break now. Jordan, if that's okay, can I do that? All right.
All right, we're on break.
Oh, we're on break. Okay. Um, fantastic. Thank you. I'll be back soon. If you are still with me here on Instagram, this is a perfect time. I have a 2-minute break on my show. So, and I'm going to give you more info on the other mistakes that people make when it comes to binge eating at night and what to do instead. But while I'm waiting to come back on the show, this is a great time for you. If you have any questions for me, you got me. I'm captive in this seat for about a minute 30. So do you have any questions for me about binge eating at night? Let me know. Do you struggle with binge eating at night? Does a friend struggle? What's your burning question about this topic? Are you here? Drop an emoji if you're actually here with me. If not, we'll just wait until I'm back on air. I see you all on my... I see you guys are here. If you are here, which of these resonates the most for you thus far? Which of these can you relate to? Oh, Janae, thank you. I'm really glad that this is interesting to you and that you're enjoying it. Back in 15. All right. Back in 15. That was a fast 2 minutes. And Janae, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments.
Welcome back to The Binge Cure with Dr. Nina. Have questions for Dr. Nina? Join her on the show at 866-472-5792. That's 866-472-5792. Now back to the show.
Hey, welcome back to The Binge Cure with Dr. Nina. We are talking about how to stop nighttime binge eating. And I have been giving some strategies of what not to do and what to do. So far, we've covered the mistakes that people make when it comes to nighttime binging, thinking that if you eat more during the day, you won't binge at night. Nope. Thinking that if you practice mindful eating, you won't binge. Nope. trying to distract yourself with other things at night, like the bubble baths and brushing your teeth kind of thing. Nope. And the idea that sleeping more will make you binge less. And I was going to, and again, nope. So I was going to give you an example, and this is Thomasina. And Thomasina thought if she could just get more sleep, she would stop binging at night because that's what people told her. So despite going to bed earlier and getting a full night's sleep and feeling really well rested, Thomasina found herself standing in front of the freezer late at night using ice cream to numb those feelings of loneliness and stress. And after she ate the ice cream, she started because she didn't keep any food in the refrigerator, fearing that she would binge on it. So she started thawing things out and making combinations of food that she would normally never eat. And she felt so compulsive and disgusted with herself. And she did not understand this at all. And when we talked about this, when she was really hard on herself. People who struggle with food are often very hard on themselves, and they have to be more curious and less critical. Because when you are curious, why am I binging at night? What's going on with me? What am I feeling? What am I thinking about? What would I be thinking about if I were not eating? When you're more curious, you find the answers. When you're critical, I can't believe I'm eating this. What's wrong with me? Why can't I stop? If people knew, they'd be disgusted. I hate myself. Well, then you just want to binge to get away from your own mean voice. And in Thomasina's case, she realized that nighttime eating was a way for her to cope with the grief and sadness she felt after a recent divorce. So she was sad, and that led her to eat ice cream for comfort because smooth and creamy foods are associated with eating, needing comfort. So if ice cream is your thing, that is often a sign that you need comfort. And then thawing other things out, like she had, bread in there that she thought she put in the microwave and she thawed, and then she put it in the toaster oven. And even though it was disgusting, she still ate it because that was filling a void, unconsciously filling a void. And when she came to understand that the divorce had left her sad and lonely, loneliness is often experienced as emptiness, and then we unconsciously fill the void with food. Nobody goes, oh, I am feeling a void within me because of my situation, and therefore I am symbolically filling it with food. No, you just are on autopilot and you can't stop eating. You don't know why. But if you can stop and ask yourself, well, wait a minute, what's going on with me? By the way, filling foods are associated with filling a void, filling a hole in your life of some kind. So if you are drawn to breads and cakes and pastas and kind of foods that take up space within, that is a sign that there is some void, emptiness, hole in your life that you want to take a look at. And by recognizing this, by learning to express her emotions, by developing more of a support system, which she had a support system, actually, she just needed to learn to lean on them. She was afraid of being a burden. She was afraid that people would be annoyed with her, all of that. So she didn't actually lean on the support system she had, but by taking a chance and leaning on people who were actually happy to be there for her and learning to practice self-care, turning that critic into a friend, guess what? She stopped binge eating at night or at any time. She stopped binge eating. All right. And this last one I have saved. The last one is the biggest one. This is the biggie. Here's the fifth mistake that people make to try to avoid nighttime eating. This is it. Avoid trigger foods to stop nighttime binge eating. So you may believe that the only way to avoid binging at night or anytime is to avoid those trigger foods. And the idea is if you get rid of those tempting foods from your house or just avoid the kitchen altogether after dinner, you won't binge. Yeah, not true. So not true. Here is the truth. There are no trigger foods. There really aren't. There are only trigger situations that trigger emotions, that trigger behavior. Food is not actually the trigger, although it sure seems like it is. And if you have been depriving yourself, by the way, and you are not letting yourself have anything, with sugar or with a carb, then the experience of deprivation is going to sometimes make you want to eat more, or the anticipation of deprivation or the experience of deprivation makes you want to have the thing that you tell yourself you can't have. But the trigger is not the food. The trigger is the deprivation. So the real trigger is some uncomfortable, painful, or upsetting situation, thought, emotion, something that is difficult to think about, something that is difficult to feel or process. So binging is a way of coping with those triggers. It is a solution, as I was saying earlier, it is actually a solution to the real triggers, which are those thoughts, conflicts, emotions, needs, wants, fears, anxieties, etc. So instead of using willpower to avoid certain foods, consider whether you're turning to food for comfort, for distraction, to fill a void, to cope with something in your life. Even some people say, well, I clearly have no willpower and I'm a food addict, because even when I am in physical pain, because I've eaten so much, I have unzipped my pants, unbuttoned all the buttons, the elastic in my waist is at its limit, and I still keep eating, even though it hurts. And they use this as evidence that they are addicted. My counterpoint to that is, no, you are maybe addicted to using food to resolve something, but maybe let's look at it a different way. Maybe you are eating to turn emotional pain into physical pain, because it is easier to get rid of physical pain than it is to get rid of emotional pain. And if you're in physical pain, you're focusing on, oh my God, I'm in physical pain. You're not focused on, oh, that really hurt my feelings, or I really feel bad about that, or I'm so mad, or I'm so lonely, or I'm so whatever. You're just focused on that. So instead of being so quick to label yourself as a food addict or having no willpower or something of that nature, really be curious about the why. Why are you turning to this food? So as always, I have an example. This is Jessica. She decided to ban all the bad foods from her house, which she called trigger foods. She thought if she did not have access to candy, she wouldn't be able to binge on candy. So what happened? First, she binged on all the stuff in her house that wasn't candy, and it just wasn't doing the trick. So what did she do? She went to the store at midnight more than once to buy those binge foods. Right? Nothing was going to stop her. She was going to get that candy. It didn't matter if it wasn't in the house. She went and got it. So she discovered that her binging was a way of coping with this intense pressure she felt to maintain a perfect image on social media, with her friends, in her personal life. Everyone thought that she had the perfect life. You know why? Because she never talked about anything real. She never said anything was bothering her. She never said she was upset. She would just say, everything's great. Oh my God, everything's great. But it wasn't great. It wasn't great. And she did not have enough sweetness in her life, the sweetness of connection, the sweetness of being able to lean on someone, being able to trust someone with your heart, being able to get that hug because you're just having that horrible day. She did not have enough sweetness in her life, so she was going to get candy for symbolic sweetness. And by learning to be more vulnerable, connecting with other people, being more real, actually showing up and sharing what was actually going on in her life, she had the sweetness of connection. It was hard for her because she thought people liked her only if she were perfect and had no needs. So it was a really challenging transition for her to go from, I'm perfect, I'm good, everything in my life is great, to going like, actually, it's not so great, and this is what's bothering me. because she thought that people would see her differently, that they would find her annoying or burdensome, and they would just not want to tolerate her. But what she found was they were actually happy, because you know what? It's hard to be around someone who's always perfect and everything's great and always has a smile on their face. So when she felt more secure in herself and her relationships, and she had that sweetness of connection, fulfillment in her relationships, she stopped binging as a distraction or a way of coping or giving herself that, symbolic sweetness. So as you can see by these myth-busting truths, binging, whether it's at night or during the day or any time in between the afternoon, it's not about food. It is a way of coping with something unpleasant, something difficult, something hard. It has to do with food. Food is the solution temporarily, but it is ultimately not about food. I call it a frenemy. Food is a frenemy. It is a friend. It does something for you. It comforts you. It soothes you. It helps you escape. It helps you. It rewards you. It sometimes punishes you. It does all these things for you. And if it seems strange to say that punishment is something that it does for you, some people feel like they need to suffer. They need to struggle. Some people think that if things are going too well, if everything is too good, that the rug is going to be pulled out from underneath them. And as long as they are not, quote unquote, too happy, they're not standing on that rug of happiness, nobody's going to pull it out from underneath them. So that's why it's so important to stay curious, to be like, what's this about? What's this doing for me? So that's how it's a frenemy. It's a friend and it does something for you, and it is an enemy in that it destroys your sense of self. It hurts your body. It makes you feel bad about yourself. It creates this secrecy. It does so much. It's so much more of an enemy than it is a friend, but it is both. So only by creating a new friendly relationship with yourself, learning new ways of giving yourself comfort, learning new ways of coping, expressing your emotions, identifying them, expressing them, and responding to yourself. And that means validating and acknowledging and reassuring yourself, being a friend to yourself. Only by doing that can you heal, create a new relationship with yourself, and then binging stops for good. That's why my book is The Binge Cure. My program is the Binge Cure Accelerator. This show is the Binge Cure with Dr. Nina, because yes, I believe in a cure. A cure means you are no longer dealing with the thing anymore. It is in your rear view mirror, and that is possible. So focusing on food keeps you from identifying and working through why you are eating. It focuses on what you are eating, not why. And the why is everything. Yes, it is harder to look at that why. It's hard to look at something that you're using food to distract from. It's definitely difficult, but it's so important to do, because once you can identify it, once you realize you can process whatever's going on, you can handle that, you can deal with hard things, you can have hard conversations, and you learn new ways of soothing, and you learn new ways of comforting yourself. You really are out of this diet binge cycle for good. Or even if you don't diet, you're out of the binge. You have the binge cure. The binge cure is yours. So I just can't stress enough how important it is to really be curious about yourself instead of critical. If you're turning to food at night and you feel desperate and unhappy about your eating habits, if you feel desperate and unhappy about your weight and you don't know what to do other than diet, this is what to do. Be a detective of your mind. Identify what's going on with you. Express it. Respond to yourself. Those three things, they sound easier than they are, but it is possible. And once you do that, you stop binge eating at night or any time. So I have a few minutes left. I want to share something. First of all, you may not know this, because I haven't really talked about it on the show, but I have 2 adult coloring books out. The first one is Color Yourself Confident. It is a coloring book for women who are struggling with emotional eating, who are overcoming, outsmarting emotional eating. And it's all of these super like these sayings that will really inspire you. So that's Color Yourself Confident, and it's to inspire your confidence in yourself. And my new one that just came out Monday is called Color Yourself Happy, a motivational and inspirational coloring book to inspire self-love. They are both available on Amazon. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to randomly turn to any page, and I'm going to talk about what that page is, what it says. So I turn to one, it says, I matter. And I put that in here because so many people that I see, and I see people all over the world, many of whom have struggled for decades. And there are 2 things people have in common, no matter where they live in the world, no matter what their situation is. One is they have an adversarial relationship with their feelings, their emotions. They don't know how to express it, don't know how to respond to themselves. But the other is they don't feel like they matter as much as other people. And often they take care of other people. They give and they help and they take care of, and as if other people matter more than they do. So they give and they give and they give and they give, and they deplete themselves and empty themselves out. And then you can probably guess what I'm about to say. Then food can fill the space, fill the emptiness, fill the void. They take care of everybody else. Recently, I said to someone, hey, you know what? You take care of everybody else, and food takes care of you. So it's really important for you to matter as much as anyone else. You matter too. This is the same principle as when you take a plane and they say, hey, if the oxygen masks drop, parents, be sure to put that oxygen mask on yourself, not on your kids, because you are of no use to anybody else if you don't have enough oxygen. So you matter too. That's one of them. Here's one. Feelings are not final. Feelings are not final. When we are in the grip of something painful, it can be hard to remember that we will not always feel that way. We will not always feel this bad. Yes, it hurts now. Yes, it's intense now. Yes, it's painful now, but it is going to get better. And when we feel bad, it's almost like we can't remember that this is temporary, and we just have to stop the feeling somehow. And that's where food can take its place, right? That, like, oh, if you eat, you're not feeling that. But remember, whatever you're feeling, it is temporary. You will survive this feeling. Feelings have never killed anybody. Feelings themselves, people taking action on feelings, that can be destructive. But feelings themselves are just reactions to situations, and they are not final, and nor are they character flaws. They are just reactions to situations. So if you are angry, you are not an angry person. You are a person who is angry for a reason. Be sure to allow that so that you don't end up eating a bunch of food and then getting mad at yourself. I call this boomerang binging. You get mad at yourself for eating or for what you weigh, when really you're mad at somebody else. Okay. Feelings are just a reaction to a situation. They are not a character flaw, and they don't last forever. And I think that is it for today. And there are like 50 more of these. I will share them on the show because they're really fun. And I love the coloring books. I wanted to do something that was just really inspiring and not just, give you, food for thought or strategies to overcome emotional eating. I wanted to give you something that makes you feel confident and inspires you. So That is it for today. Thank you so much for joining me on The Binge Cure with Dr. Nina. I'm here every Thursday at noon Pacific on Voice America and live streaming on Instagram. And if you want a deeper dive into this topic and many others, be sure to get your copy of my best-selling book, The Binge Cure: 7 Steps to Outsmart Emotional Eating. It is available on Amazon in all formats, including audiobook, and I read it to you. So if you want me to read you a book, it's possible. Go to Amazon, get the book. I'll read it to you right away. So stay curious, not critical, and I will see you next week. Bye for now.
All clear. Great show.
Thanks, Jordan. Would you ever
No
tell
problem.
me if it was not a great show? Do you ever
No,
be
we're
like,
not.
that was okay? That was an okay show.
I mean, if you ask me to be honest, I might.
Yeah, I appreciate honesty. No, you don't have to tell me it was a great show. Some
It
of them
was.
are
It
greater
was.
than others.
Said it definitely was. I could relate to some of the topics from today's show for sure.
Oh, good. I love that. Hey, if there's anything you ever think I should talk about, tell me. I'm open for suggestions.
I definitely will. I have to think about that. I definitely will.
Okay. Well, have a great week. I'll see you next week.
You as well.
Okay. Bye.